I'm Benjamin Hall, and I'm searching for heroes.
Well, our guest today, really, frankly, is a hero among many people. He's an active duty Green Beret, but what makes him incredible is that he is the first Green Beret to return to service, to serve inside Afghanistan with one prosthetic leg above the knee. Now, Nick was injured during a insider attack in Afghanistan in 2013, but he never let that stop him. He got through it, he passed all the tests and the assessments, and he got back out there. And today he still serves. He's a Special Forces Chief Warrant Officer. And more than that, he talks about resilience. He spreads a story to everyone who will listen. He writes amazing books and gives great keynotes about finding that inner strength inside you that can make you pass and get through even the toughest challenges. He has done that time and time again, and he is a remarkable speaker. And it is such a great honor to have him on as our guest today. So thanks for joining, everyone. And here's Nick Lavery. Well, look, Nick, what a pleasure to have you on the podcast today. I mean, it's a great, great pleasure. Thank you.
No, Ben, I appreciate the time, man. Thank you.
I wanted to start off with something that I've heard that you have said before, and it is that change is inevitable, but progress is optional. Decide. And that's you put your real marks on it right there, because I think that it's inside you. You have to make that decision to progress.
Yeah, man. And, just the fundamental truth, the reality is this: things are constantly changing around us. I mean, literally, you and I right now in this conversation are changing. Our environments are changing. The status of our relationships are changing. Our circumstances are changing. Our body chemistry is changing. So we live in a world of constant change. And change is something that oftentimes creates fear of the unknown. People get stuck in their ways and they've got a nice system and things are nice and cool and predictable and comfortable. And change requires you to push outside that. So it's one thing to force yourself into change. And that could be something as simple as I'm going to change the way I eat, or I'm going to change my daily routine. It's also something when life throws a curveball at you and some adversity comes your way, which is also inevitable, that you are forced to change. And that's really where the option lies. That's where you are at that decision point, right? The thing happened and you can choose how you want to address that. You're going to take this opportunity and see it as such to advance and push on and adapt and overcome, or you're going to become a victim to your circumstances and curl up in a ball and remain there indefinitely. The choice is entirely up to us. We just have to know going in, I think, that we're going to be met with that crossroads, and that becomes an opportunity to advance.
I suppose, do you think that, because some people would say something terrible has happened to me, and look, you and I have both lost legs and something bad happened, but do you think that it is inside everybody to find that resilience, or do only some people have that resilience to say, you know what, I can get through this? Or do you think inside everyone has that?
I would take a bold stance, but I would say everybody has the capability. I would argue that talent exists. Inherent skill is a thing. A lot of our resilience is created as young people, which is a product of both nature and nurture combined, and the circumstances in which we were raised and brought up and things we were exposed to. But I fundamentally, wholeheartedly believe resilience is a skill. It is learned behavior, and it exists within everybody. Now, for me, and I'd be interested if this is the case for you, Ben, I would say for most, they recognize the pre-existing capability on the back end of a traumatic event, or kind of hitting that rock bottom, or something really, really challenging or traumatic happens. And in order to get past that and continue to live your life and move forward, you have to tap into that existing potential. That was the case for me. And, I was a hard worker and I've got plenty of accomplishments and accolades that I'm proud of as a two-legged guy, but I had no idea what my true capability was until I was met with that particular circumstance, set my sight on a mission, and then began moving towards that I knew I had to find a whole nother gear. I had to find another level. And it was within me the entire time. It's not like when I was in the hospital bed, some mad scientist snuck into my room and shoved a metal spike into my brain and uploaded resilience or work ethic. Like those character traits and capabilities were within me. It just took me going through a really bad day at the office for those to begin to come to the surface.
Were there ever times when you thought you didn't have it? Were there really tough times at the beginning, soon after the attack? And I'll talk to you a bit about the attack in a minute, but where you thought, I don't know if I can get through this. This is really tough how I do it. Or did that never cross your mind?
Oh, no. I was met with that countless times, oftentimes countless times daily. It's a great question, man. And it's one I really do enjoy talking about because people see the photo or the image at the end of the journey and maybe assume, man, like, how did you stay so positive the whole time? And how did you avoid doubting yourself and going through, the struggle and the challenges? It's like, no. I was questioning whether or not this was possible sometimes every single day. And those are those little moments that you have. And that's when the game's being played. And, you got maybe, I don't know, science will say somewhere between 5, 7, 8 seconds to decide how you want to play that game. But right there and then, that is when the game's being played, when you are literally or figuratively, in my case, both, on your face, on the ground, and all the doubt is pouring in. Like, hey, man, maybe it's time to be a little more realistic. Is this even really practical? Like, what are you thinking? There's a reason why no one's ever done this before. All those thoughts start to pour in, and they all start to sound incredibly convincing in that moment of weakness and defeat. That's the game right there, brother. You got a couple seconds to choose. Yep, this sucks. I don't like the way I feel right now, but you know what? I'm going to learn from what just happened, and I'm going to get back. I'm going to apply that knowledge, and I'm going to keep moving forward.
Yeah. I found when I was being evacuated, I had 10 hours, no pain meds. And there were moments I'd reach where I just said, I'm not sure I can do this anymore, and would stop and say to myself, you got another level. You can put that away. You can find more. And I was absolutely amazed when you found that and you put some pain to the side and you managed to keep going. And I learned on those days that we had that extra level. But before that, I didn't know. And I think one of the points of the podcast is to tell everyone, you might not have had to search for it. You might not have had to dig for it inside you, but it is there if you really try and find it. And I don't know. Are you worried that many people don't have the confidence to tell themselves that they have that? And does that hold people back?
I wouldn't say it's something I'm worried about, but I have made it kind of my next purpose in life, kind of my next mission beyond military service, to enable people to recognize that the potential that they have. And, as man, when you are at the brink of death, and in my case, through all intents and purposes, I absolutely should have died. You and I should not be having this conversation today, according to the laws of biology and physiology. A lot of those rules that we know, according to science, were broken that day on March 11, 2013. And coming that close to the end. And in fact, based on your philosophy on this, your position on this, I completely crossed over and then kind of came back. This is such a gift that we get to live every single day. And I think it's a true tragedy for people to go through the bulk or perhaps their entire lives not seeing their true potential. Because this isn't a dress rehearsal, Ben. Like, this ride that we're on here is going to end. So as soon as we can accept that, like the Greek phrase, Latin phrase, memento mori, like, life will end, right? And if you can take that in and then weaponize it, it's like, why not leave it all out on the field? Why not take the risk, tap in deep into your soul and into your mind and find that next gear and leverage it towards becoming the person that you truly want to be?
Yeah, I've always thought that I couldn't think of anything that would make me sadder than to be at the end of my life and to look back and think, oh, I wish I had done that, or I didn't put enough into it.
Right.
Like, don't wait, don't let time pass. Stand up right now, go do what's got to be done. Do it for yourself, do it for those around you. Now, look, you mentioned an interesting word back there. You said gift. And I wonder if you see, you talk about the positives or the gifts that you were given after, the attack that took place.
Oh, I mean, it's maybe difficult to comprehend. I think many that have been through really tough times and have gotten past it can agree that there is positivity to extract from any scenario. I think the only question really is how much analysis is being put into it and how much time is necessary to pull out that value, even of the worst times. And I've been through some tough times personally, and I've been through even worse times with some of my buddies that are no longer with us. There is ways to extract value. There is ways to find the positivity within it. It can be really hard to do that. And I look at the life I get to live now, and sometimes I'll play the what if game, which is a nasty, sometimes cyclical cycle of what if I did still have two legs? Like, what would my life look like today? I obviously have no clue, but what I do know is all the amazing things that I do have. And I can say with a degree of confidence that my ability to influence and aspire and affect other people around me, not just my teammates at work or those within my business. I'm talking about my kids and my spouse and those in my true inner circle. Man, this injury that happened to me was just such a gift that I'm able to then deploy it towards them to show, not tell. It's one thing to say, hey, man, you can do whatever you want to do in life. That's great. It's another thing. I'll just use my two sons as an example. The oldest is 7, the youngest is 3. Every day they see dad strapping on this leg. They see me coming in at late at night, sometimes hobbling because it's been a long day and my leg is beat up and I'm sore and beat down. And sometimes they feel that, they absorb that. And I can say that without having this that I can take advantage of, who knows what I'd be able to do. But I do know that I can, and I seek to leverage this gift that I've been given, not just a second chance at life, but I'm talking about the injury itself, how that is able to be leveraged for positive good.
You mentioned your kids there, and I've got 3 of my own, and I always try and think, I really want to teach them. I want to raise them to be hard workers, to find that resilience. But, just telling them to be resilient, just telling them to be hard workers isn't sometimes enough. And I wonder how you see being a parent, how you try to impart that to your kids as they're growing up when they are so young, and they're seeing you in your leg, etc.
Yeah, I mean, the short answer, Ben, is implementation. I think it's mostly by virtue of the way you live. And if you're going to set a standard for anybody around you, you need to live that standard yourself, period. And maybe kind of in a more tactical realm or kind of down to the mechanics. I heard someone say, I don't remember exactly who it was, might have been Jordan Peterson, but someone said, and I'm going to paraphrase, but one of the greatest ways you can set your kids up for failure is to stop them while they're doing dangerous things carefully. And I just think that that's so brilliantly stated, because as a parent, when you witness your kid, especially when they're young, doing something a little dangerous, you want to jump in and protect them, right? You want to put that bubble around them. But if you're constantly doing that, then you're robbing them the chance of feeling that discomfort, feeling that, that sense of pain and that sense of failure and having to struggle through whatever the task may be, or they're trying to climb a tree or, open up a gallon of milk. So that is one thought that comes to mind as I'm parenting and still learning how to be a dad and try to continue to be a better one. That's a phrase that comes to mind where it's, if they look like, and then maybe I ask a question or two that they're conducting a little bit of analysis, they're not in the realm of reckless, then maybe you let that play out as long as it's not egregious. And, that really becomes the question is, when do you step in? And those can be hard choices to make. But what I do believe is that if we are continuously placing this bubble of protection constantly around our kids, well, yeah, of course, they're going to grow up to be somewhat soft, or we're going to have a disadvantage because they haven't been exposed to that adversity and have to struggle through it as a young person.
Yeah, not just that, but of course, you raise them that way, and then suddenly they leave your home and they go off to the real world and they realize that, boy, there are all these challenges. So if you don't prepare them for them when they're young, they are not going to be ready. They are going to be shocked, and they're not going to go far later in life. I wondered if you could take us back to March the 11th, 2013, and tell us what happened on that day.
Yeah, man, we were set to go on to an operation with a bunch of our partner force guys. We were only set to be in country for another 2-3 weeks, and we were set to go home. So we were on the back end of a 6-month deployment into Afghanistan, my 3rd time over there. And prior to us launching, loading up trucks and heading out, a member of the Afghan National Police Force, a guy that we've been working with for months, climbed up on the back of a Ford Ranger pickup truck that had a mounted PKM belt-fed machine gun attached to it and opened fire into me and my detachment and teammates from about 25, 30 feet away, which is an incredibly close proximity, especially for a weapon system that powerful. 12 U.S. casualties total, 3 of which were killed. Myself, another 8 wounded, varying degrees. Most of the damage to me was to my right leg, and it basically vaporized my right leg.
You're listening to Searching for Heroes. We'll be right back after this.
Do they know, what is, obviously we understand his motives, but had he all along been working with the Taliban? Do you know anything about that?
I do. And I can tell you, man, once I received the information that I'll share with you now, it was a massive catalyst for me in my recovery and growth. But the short answer is a bunch of Taliban fighters recognized they had a target of opportunity with this guy who had access to us. They bombed into his house in the middle of the night, 9 or 10 guys with guns. This guy was married with, I think, 5 or 6 kids. And they presented him with 2 options. They said, option A is you're going to do this attack for us. Option B is we're going to brutalize your entire family in front of you right now. And then we're going to slaughter them. And then we're going to slaughter you. Either way, whichever choice you make, you're definitely dead. But if you choose option A, we will ensure your family is cared for. And this was a growing tactic during that time period. And what made it work was they would follow through on that. So they had built up this degree of credibility that had, made its way around, where people knew if they were presented this option, they would follow through and take care of the families. So once my teammates got back to the States, they got back to Fort Bragg and they downloaded and did all their things. They came to see me at Walter Reed very quickly. And one of the first things that they shared with me was what I just shared with you. And when that information was passed to me, it was this massive weight of anger and rage and betrayal that just completely vanished. Because even though, Ben, I didn't have the wife and kids that I have now, I could still empathize with that guy in being put between truly a rock and a hard place without any true practical way of fighting back in that one moment. Like, you have to make your choice right now. What's it going to be? If I'm put in that position, especially you fast forward to today, when I am married, I do have 2 young kids. If I'm put in that position today without any realistic way of combating that, I'd make the same exact decision 10 times out of 10, no questions asked. I would do just about anything to protect my family. So when I was able to kind of put myself into that perspective and deploy that empathy towards that individual, man, just the weight just drifted away. And it was a pretty massive release that allowed me to focus on the business at hand.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, first of all, for your brothers who didn't make it back. Of course, we can never forget those guys.
Thank you.
Every single day, we've got to remember them. And I think that's, the first thing that we should always have to do. So, look, got to always take a second to remember those guys. But, what happened after that, what you decided to do, and you're the first person to have done it. You got a prosthetic above the knee. And you made the decision that you wanted to go back, you wanted to serve again. I mean, that must have seemed crazy to many people. No one had done it before. I mean, where did that decision come from? How did you make that decision?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I can tell you when I made it, and it was when I was in the intensive care unit at Walter Reed. I'd only been there for maybe a week. Still going through surgery, still in critical condition. Coherent enough to recognize at least that most of my leg was gone, even though it would continue to disappear over and over and over again over the next 6-7 weeks. But my decision was made then. And it was quite simple for me. Things have changed for me a little bit since then. But at the time, being a Green Beret, being a warfighter, being a service provider to this great nation of ours was not what I did. It was who I was. It was everything that I was. I was put on this planet to do this one thing. And that was ironclad in my mind. So I saw it quite simply as you have 2 choices, different 2 choices than that other guy, but 2 choices. One is you're going to roll over and die, or 2 is you are going to get back to doing what you do. You're going to get back to doing the thing you were put on this planet to do. And, maybe you haven't figured it out at this point, but I don't do very well with the whole rolling over and dying thing. So it was like, Roger that. Like, that's the choice. That's the decision. I hadn't a clue as to how, but I did make up my mind then. And what I can say with certainty is when you can decide the what am I going to do question. And sometimes people get stuck in that cycle. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? Round and around we go, whether it's on the back end of a traumatic event or just a bad day or week. What am I going to do? When you can answer that question for yourself and you can plant a flag into the future as a beacon it allows you to proceed all your energy and bandwidth and time and effort into the how am I going to do this question, which are two entirely different questions. What versus how? I got the what, check that box, roger that. Now we're on to the how. And I just simply saw it as an equation. Like there is an answer to this equation. And when you know the answer to an equation, it makes it much easier to solve for all the variables. And that's just simply my thought process at the time. And that was my approach, man.
Yeah, no, I had that too. I mean, for me, straight away, I was just getting home to the family. And I thought about that when I was lying on the floor. No one knew where we were and the leg was gone and, badly injured. That was it. I had a goal. I knew I was doing it. And no matter what, I was getting there. And I remember that. But there were some people, and my physios, at CFI down at Bampsey were telling me some people, quite a few people didn't have that they couldn't get themselves out of bed every day, that they had to lift the beds vertically so that they would get out of bed. And again, it just brings me back to, again, who has that drive, where you can find that drive and who doesn't have it. We sort of answered that question at the beginning. You think it's in everyone, but again, why can't people find that?
I would say, at least for me, and I would say for most people, the critical component to that enabled me to do that was identifying the mission. A reason to get up or just to sit up, given your example there. Why sit up right now? What's the point? Without a mission to be working towards, I don't know that I would have had this even remotely the same level of dedication and discipline and work ethic and resilience and pushing through pain and fear and suffering and all these things, because it was in every single one of those moments of failure and discomfort that beacon was the thing that got me past it. That was my reason. So I think that many struggle with a reason, and whether that's you've got your legs shot off or blown off or not, you just wake up one day and you're in your mid 50s and you kind of just been meandering and floating through life. And you're like, what am I working towards? What do I want to do? And more importantly, who do I want to be? I think many just simply don't have that. And that can be, I'd say, more difficult to grasp when you're following a traumatic event and you're trying to just stay alive and you're just like in the grind, literally, of survival. But at some point, man, you got to make a claim and make a commitment to yourself and people around you. Like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to be? Answer that question for yourself, knowing that it will likely change at some point. And that's okay. It may change because you accomplished it, or it may change because en route to that, you realize like, oh, you know what? I think actually I want to go this direction. Roger that. But the point is to plant the flag, to set the target, give yourself a mission, have work. When I say work, I mean legitimately work on increasing the clarity of that vision, the ability to see it, touch it, taste it, smell it, every little intricate detail, because that is going to be the thing at the core when things get hard, which they will, that's going to enable you to get up and continue to figure it out.
For quite a while, I thought that what got anyone who's gone through something traumatic, what got them through was community. It was people around you. It was understanding that you could do it together, that you were doing it for someone else. But just in the last month or two, I've started to think and realize that 80% or whatever is about community, and it's doing it together, and it's about having a support group. But there is a part, whether it's 20%, whatever it is, that has to be you. You can have all the support you want. You can have all the community. You can be fine for other people. But at some point, you've got to have that one last drive inside. Just say, I'm the one taking those first steps forward. I'm the one standing up. And maybe it's because you're doing it for someone else. You're doing it as part of a community. But I've only just started to think about that recently, that it has to be both. It has to be both community, but it also has to be you. You need to find that right inside you. You can't rely on everyone else and the support from everyone else to get things done.
Brilliant point. I'm so glad you bring it up. When I'm doing a keynote or I'm, doing a training workshop, or I'm just in the grocery store and someone comes up and thanks me for my service, whatever it is, sometimes I will share this depending on the circumstances, but there are hundreds of people that are standing alongside me at any given moment of time that it had not been for them, I'm not where I am today. That is an absolute 100% certainty, from the nurses to the doctors, to the prosthetists, to my family, to my teammates, to my leadership. A team, when you say a team and you say community, we can use those synonymously, absolutely essential. There's this like phrase like self-made that people like to kind of throw around. And I think many kind of have a sense of the spirit of that, which is, to your point, like you're going to have to put in a lot of hard work that no one else can do for you. But if you try to attack any problem set or goal truly on your own, this like absolute literal lone wolf concept, you are going to lose. All right. Now, you may win a couple battles here and there, but you are going to lose the war to the person or the organization that has the honesty, self-awareness, humility to recognize their gaps, deficiencies, weaknesses, and then go out and find assets that they can bring into their life, into their circle, onto their team, to then leverage to continue to go and grow and achieve one goal after another. So couldn't agree possibly with you more. There was a massive team that I had around me that I leveraged on for just about everything at different times. But when that alarm clock goes off at 4:30 in the morning and you're tired and beat up and sore and every excuse in the world to hit the snooze button or straight up throw your alarm clock through the wall is sounding the most convincing, you're the one that has to get up and go. No one else can do that for you. So I think you said it perfectly. You know, the 80-20, we could probably argue on the math, but the concept is absolutely sound.
Yeah. Talk to me about getting back in. I mean, what level did you have to hit? Like what sort of, what was, no one else presumably had taken all the tests, had reached that level. So what was that process like?
Yeah, I'll tell you, I had been making it known that I was going to go back to the teams and go back to combat basically from the very beginning. And, you know, in the earlier phases, everyone around you wants to be supportive and positive. And, you know, you get a lot of like, absolutely, brother, you got this, man. Like you can do it, all this stuff. And then you start to progress on the journey and, you know, a year goes by, year and a half goes by. And some people start to maybe be a little more realistic with you. Like, hey, man, listen, like, I don't want to deflate your bubble here, but like, I don't think that that's going to happen. Like maybe you start to think about what like really your next chapter of your life looks like. And I was fine with that. It was like, okay, fine, whatever. I am completely committed, total conviction. Doesn't really matter anyone else's opinion. When I eventually got to a position where I felt like I could legitimately give it a shot, you know, I went to my chain of command and I said, hey, like, what do I got to do? And they were like, all right, let's find out. And, you know, God bless them, because whoever was in that seat at that time, that's kind of how the military works, could have just been like, yeah, no. And that would have been like a massive roadblock that I would have had to try to figure out. But it was, okay, you want to give it a shot? We'll give you your shot. And there was no real well thought out like pipeline for me to go down because this hadn't happened before. So they just started throwing kind of random basic Army assessments and tests at me, things that every soldier would have to do at least one point in time throughout typically a year. So I knock out the first one, knock out the second one, third one, fourth one. At some point, a bunch of my senior leaders got down and sat around a conference room and said, okay, like this Nick guy, he's not going away. Like we all kind of assumed that he would have failed like the second thing or the third thing, but he's like 5 or 6 assessments in and he will not go away. So like, what do we actually want this guy to be able to do? And they had like a meeting of the minds and kind of a brainstorming session, literally with little yellow stickies, sticking things to the wall. Like, well, let's make him do this. Okay. That sounds about right. So they kind of haphazardly came up with the game plan. And then they just began throwing different things at me. So I would do usually anywhere from 2 to 4 different assessments a week. And that lasted a little over 12 weeks. So they did throw the kitchen sink at me. They did their diligence, and rightfully so. I mean, you know, some commander, actually several commanders, were going to be assuming an enormous risk if they were to actually do this. So at the end of that, I was given the approval. I returned back to the same detachment that I was on when I was wounded. And about 6-7 weeks later, we were back in Afghanistan.
I like it though. I mean, imagine all of them just thought you weren't going to make it. Like, give him a shot, let him do the tests, but you know, it's fine. He won't get through. And then you kept knocking them all out, and you did. Did you ever think though, did it ever cross your mind that when you're back in Afghanistan, you're back with you're the same guys? Did it cross your mind that might you hold them back? Like, did you ever think, might I not be able to be alongside them in the way I was? I know I'm fit, you must have said. I know I'm doing things, but did you question that as you were going into it?
I did. It took a while for me to see that. You know, when I first put myself on this journey, then it was about me. It was pretty self-centered. It was about me getting back to doing the profession I love. It was about me getting back to living the lifestyle that I was put on this earth to do. It was about me proving the naysayers wrong and proving myself right, and, kind of all those things. And that's what I relied on for a good year or so, maybe a little beyond a year. And at some point, it was actually when I was going through this 12-ish week assessment phase, and I'm knocking things out. I got all this momentum. Confidence is high. I'm like, these guys can throw anything at me and I'm going to knock it out of the park. Like, what do you have next? Bring it on. And I woke up in the middle of the night. True story. My wife can tell you this better than me, but I pop up in a cold sweat, hot race, and I thought I was going to die. And she's like, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And the short version is I realized in that moment that I was going back to a team, and it scared the hell out of me. And in fact, it brought this enormous amount of guilt on that because I hadn't thought about them prior. So after no sleep, I go into work. At this point, I'm working as an instructor and they're doing team guide life. And I grab them and I'm like, guys, I need 5 minutes. I apologize incessantly. I tell them what happened. And they all come back and they all say the same thing. They're like, listen, dude, we've talked about this dozens of times. And the short answer is we don't know if this is going to work, but we want to be the ones to decide if it'll work or not. So if you're able to make it back here, you know full well that the standard is the standard, and you either meet the standard or you don't. And as much as we love you, we cannot nor will not allow you to be a liability within this business. And that took my productivity and my motivation and drive to just a whole nother level, Ben, because rather than me going into the gym for the third time of that day, thinking about this glorifying moment, getting off the helicopter or the plane back in Afghanistan, both arms in the air, victory, I made it. You should have killed me when you had the chance. I'm back and I'm going to make you pay kind of thing, which is what drove me for a while. Now I was thinking about my teammate's 5-year-old son. I was thinking about my teammate's wife, and it enabled me to just produce a whole nother level of output. But that was a fear that remained. And certainly once I got back, boots on the ground in Afghanistan, you hit that milestone and it's like, okay, I made it. I summited this mountain and now boom, I'm at the bottom of a whole new mountain that needs to be climbed. And that was my approach. And, we took a very strategic kind of tactical look at how I would be implemented into actual kinetic operations. And it was this very slow, gradual kind of crawl, walk, run methodology where we really analyzed the target, the terrain, the weather, all these different things to decide if I was best suited to be on that particular operation or if I could be perhaps best suited someplace else. That's what that 6-month deployment looked like. But come the end of it, really, man, I was just another team guy. That was it.
You're listening to Searching for Heroes. We'll be right back after this.
I had something similar. I knew straight away that I wanted to go back to Ukraine, that I needed to go back and I needed to send that message. You tried to stop us. You tried to stop journalists, but I will come back. I've got to keep doing that. And then I did it one time. And then I realized it wasn't just, you don't just have one goal. Like, it's not like you tick off the goal and you've done it. There are always more goals. You never stop wanting more. And so I wonder for you, and I know you're the same, you've ticked so many goals, you've reached them, but I know you've got more goals. I know you keep constantly trying to do more. What's your new goal? What's your next goal?
I can tell you, man, for my life as a soldier, my team time, so my life as an operator on a detachment ended about 1.5 years ago. And I swore that I would be miserable for the rest of my military career because that's all I ever wanted to do. That's what I love. That's where my heart is. But the writing was on the wall and it became very obvious that my time was done. And, it's a lifestyle that takes its toll physically, mentally, on the family. And I had a great run at it, most of which was done on one leg, countless deployments, combat, all the things. So that time was end. It was time to transition, which is a really hard thing to do. I did it as a professional, but I got into my current job that I'm in now. And I realized within about 2 days just how wrong I once again was, because it's an amazing opportunity and blessing to get to do what I do. So I kind of moved up in the chain of command where I now sit at the company command level as a leader. And my job is to mentor and advise and provide resources to, the next young group of savage Green Berets that are ready to take down the global war on terrorism single-handedly, like I was, what felt like 10 minutes ago. And now I'm in this position, which is an awesome responsibility. And, I got a lot to learn to continue to be better at that. So that is what's kind of continuously filling my cup on the Army side. And then, kind of my other professional life is it's a whole new world when you decide to go into the realm of entrepreneurship and, start something for your own and grind through it. It's never ending. It's nonstop challenges and needing to learn the new thing or the new terminology or the new whatever. And so it's around the clock. But honestly, man, I couldn't imagine just kind of floating and chilling. And like you said, it's for some people, it really is this never ending pursuit of accomplishment and progression and growth.
Yeah. I mean, you're running your own business now, and I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about Team Machine, for example, what you guys are doing there.
Yeah. So it's a training and consulting company. So mostly we do services, and we provide presentations, training workshops, seminars, inspirational talks, you kind of name it, all the way from a, kind of a 5-minute pregame, like motivational pep talk to multi-day training workshops. And we focus mostly on leadership, resilience, performance mindset, and team building. And, it's still very much a passion project for me and my whole team. Most of us do another thing full time. It's wild and surreal and humbling how in really just a few years, it's grown to where it is now, and we are all outrunning our own headlights, which is a place I'm perfectly comfortable being. We make a lot of mistakes daily. We learn from them. We continue to push. But I can tell you, man, as we talked about transition, what's difficult for a lot of service members is transitioning out of military service, almost irrelevant to how long you spent in. But certainly if you've spent 20 plus years and made it a career and a lifestyle, to transition into what that next evolution of your life looks like, that's hard. My wife is going through it right now. For me, I'm just so incredibly blessed that not only have I identified what my next purpose is, my next professional purpose is, but I get a chance to work on it now and slowly build a foundation and, make mistakes and surround myself with great people who are much better than me in a lot of different things. So I do say with confidence that when my military career does come to an end, I'll have a nice, solid transition plan laid down, and then we just hit the accelerator on my company and see where it goes, man.
Yeah, I've had quite a few guests on who really struggled when they left, the military and went to the lowest places, but then found a way through. But I know it's something that we should all be focusing on, helping those guys too. But Team Machine, you're also helping civilians and you're trying to teach them resilience, but you're still trying to, as you just said, you've got young Green Berets and you're trying to motivate them. I wonder how different the two are. I mean, you're motivating and trying to teach resilience to both, but are there many similarities, or do you have to make it very different in your message?
I would say there's more similarities in the methodologies and tactics and tools than there are differences. Now, when it comes to the individual, you're talking about, a 24-year-old Green Beret who's been on the teams for 6 months. I mean, that dude has gone through a lot of evaluations and assessments and training. And so by the time they get to me now, they've entered into a realm of unusual. They're a different type of person. That's literally what special means in the word special forces, or the phrase. Special just means different. That's all it is. If you called us different forces, it would mean the exact same thing. We're, of course, different in the way we think and more importantly, the way we behave. So by the time when I get to work and mentor young Green Berets, they've already gone through a lot of advanced internal, external skill development and character capability, versus if I'm working with, say, a typical or a similar demographic of other young people, let's say some like college football players, similar in age, similar accomplishments. These individuals almost certainly have not gone through what these guys have. But what I love doing is taking the principles and ethos and tenets and methodologies to not only create a young Green Beret, but then take that young Green Beret and make them an even better one, and then ram those into the minds of people in the corporate world, in the university world, law enforcement, first responders, athletics, because ambitious people are ambitious people. And the key word in that is people. Like we're talking about people, and you're talking about influence. You're talking about inspiration. These are themes, and the ways in which you can go about doing that are themes that are ironclad regardless of what you're trying to do. So it's a lot of fun for me and my team. And I got a lot of military guys that I work with, is taking those things with the military jargon and terminology and kind of the aggressive tonality and translating it into a way that someone else could understand and then turn around and implement.
Hmm. We'll finish up in a minute, but I wonder if you look across America as a whole, are you pretty confident that, the people are heading in the right direction, that people are being more resilient, or are you sometimes concerned as you look at the divisions that we're seeing, perhaps, people being more isolated online? Like, do you think that there is a bigger concern for the future about the way that the country is going right now?
It's not something that keeps me up at night. I think that this is the way evolution goes. And there's that expression, like hard times create hard people, and hard people create soft times. I'm missing it up, but it's this like cyclical cycle of with strength comes growth, and then with growth comes weakness on the back end of that, and we keep going around and around and around. And I think it's easy for us. I say older guys. I'm 41. I'm not exactly that old, but it's easy for us to look at some of the kids these days, younger people, and be like, you're soft, you're weak, you have no work ethic, you're buried into your phone and your video game, and like all your like. It's easy for us to do that. I think it's important for us to remember that one, we are the generation and the ones beyond that created the technologies and the efficiencies in which we have shoved into the faces of our young people. So a little bit of ownership, I think, goes a long way. And then that's almost kind of the point of evolution and of the development of technology. It's to make things more efficient. That's the point. But if you make something more efficient, then by virtue, you are going to make it easier. Then by virtue, that person could be considered softer than the person that didn't have those things. Like before the school bus was created, kids were like walking to school in 12 feet of snow in New England. You could say like those guys were hard. These kids these days, they're soft because they're on a nice warm bus. It's like, yeah, I know that's the point. We did that on purpose. So that is the unfortunate cost of efficiencies and of development of technologies. But I think that for those that enjoy studying anthropology and history, this doesn't come at a shock, because that's quite literally what we're doing on purpose. So no, I don't have any concerns. I think that things are going to continue to look a whole lot different than they did 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. And I think one of the major differences is just how much more condensed the time horizon is of these like massive shifts in the way we do things. Whereas at one point it could be an entire generation before the next thing came out that became the way. Now you're seeing that sometimes within the same calendar year, how fast things are evolving. I mean, Google is almost considered obsolete thanks to AI and ChatGPT. Like that is blowing my mind. The fact that something that advanced already is like, yeah, no one does that anymore. That's like Blockbuster in 2002. I'm like, are you kidding me? A tool that powerful? That's really where we're at. But it's true. So I think that how fast now the game is constantly being changed. That is a huge contributor why people are getting so angst and uncomfortable and concerned. It's because it's an inability to keep up with how fast things are changing.
That is hands down the best answer I've ever had to that question. I can't tell you how many people just say, oh, we're heading into difficult times or whatnot. You're spot on. I absolutely love that. Nick, to finish it up, I wonder if there's anything else you want to tell us just about what you do, about your story, about what you've learned about resilience. Like, how do you like to finish this?
Thank you for that opportunity, Ben. I would say that, it's easy to look at the cover of my book or like social media and these, like cool guy images or highly edited, polished videos that are, motivating and stuff, which me and my people do on purpose, admittedly. But it's easy to look at something like that and put me on this facade pedestal as being cut from a different cloth or coming from another planet or, this like superhero image that is completely and totally inaccurate. All right. I am a human being. I make mistakes constantly. There are times in which I am lethargic. There are times that I procrastinate, like all the things. I get things wrong. I have a family. When I get done with work, I go home and I love on them and I mess that up as well. Like I'm a human. So one of the things that can be a challenge for me with what I do is people placing me on this built up facade pedestal where it's, yeah, well, I'm not you, right? I'm not 6'6" with tattoos and a robot leg, Green Beret. So what you're saying doesn't apply to me because I'm not you. And it's like, well, you may have all your limbs and you may have yet or not decided to become a Green Beret, but we're more alike than we are different. The height thing, like, can't help you there, bro. Like, that's just going to be the way it is. But the rest of this stuff, this is learned behavior. This is absolutely doable. And I think that, again, what was critical for me was deciding what I was going to do and who I was going to be. And that is a missing piece, I would say, with most. So if you find yourself going around in a circle, meandering through life, floating, set a target, set a beacon, surround yourself with good people, and begin executing towards that.
Absolutely. Well, look, the podcast is called Searching for Heroes. And I know you just said you're not like everyone else, but boy, do you stand right at the top of them all. And more than anything, I know how many people look to you, hear what you're saying, and that inspires them. And I don't think there's a greater gift in life than to be able to say you have helped to inspire and improve and help other people who have gone through things. So for that, and for your service, and for everything else you've done, Nick, I can't thank you enough for joining us. Thank you so much for it all. And I hope we get to meet in person one day.
I'll be looking forward to it, brother. Stay safe out there, man. Thank you.
Well, again, I mean, what an amazing guest. And I just think that Nick is just one of those people that you can speak to. And boy, does it give you a spring in your step. And it reminds you that no matter what's happened to you, you can keep going. You can always find a way through. And look, our stories have quite a lot in common. I felt exactly the way he did. You know, once you are injured and knocked down, both of us immediately knew that we had to get up and keep working hard and find our way through to the other side. Never let it hold you back. And again, it's all about community. It's all about the team, as he put it. But inside you, you've got to be the one that finally takes that step as well. So such a great guest to have on. And if I could read all of Nick's awards, we would be here for a long, long day. But, you know, to mention a few of them, you know, Silver Star, 3 Purple Hearts, 2 Bronze Stars, Bronze Star with a V, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, 2 Meritorious Service Medals. The list goes on and on. There are many, many more than that. And that's because he has served this country so well, because he has served his family so well, and because, frankly, he's leading the way and motivating people. So I hope you guys listened to that. I hope you enjoyed it. You know, and if you're trying to do something, if you're not sure if you can do it, or if it might look really tough to do right now, just think about what Nick's gone through and realize that you can stand up right now. Make that phone call, send that email, go talk to that person, go do what you want to do. Don't hold back. You can do it. Anyone can do it. Anyway, thanks so much for joining us, guys. And I look forward to speaking to you next week. Listen ad-free with a Fox News Podcasts Plus subscription on Apple Podcasts. And Amazon Prime members can listen to this show ad-free on the Amazon Music app.